Now, I often stand up here and say what a great year we've had and how many more people we've helped, and I will get to that in a second. But I do have to start by acknowledging the fact that it's felt like a pretty tough year in some parts this year. Not for everybody, but we've had some unusual things happen across the hospice movement. We've had the first hospice go into insolvency, that's St Clair's up in Jarrow in January. We've seen some inpatient units announce that they've had to close, and that's in the adult hospices and the children's hospices. In many cases, we've had to retrench and pull back and relook at our services, and it's been quite tough from a funding perspective. When we went out in April and we asked hospices who were going to be running a deficit budget, 82% told us that they would be this year. And whilst we know that some hospices will run one because they might have had a big legacy last year and there were good reasons for doing so, 2/3 of hospices told us that they just simply didn't think that they would be able to make ends meet this year. And we've got to take that really seriously. Now, we've had some successes this year. We've managed to talk to the government and the increase in the pension contribution for NHS pensions. We've managed to get that matched. Now, we don't know how that's going to happen this next year because it has to be a ministerial statement and we don't have any ministers at the moment. But we do know that that is going to happen. We know we've got an extra 25 million, which is great news, and many hospices have been coming to me saying that they've already had good conversations with their CCGs and they've managed to ring-fence the money. So it's a good opportunity for those of you who haven't yet had that opportunity to speak to your colleagues around the conference and find out how different people have approached it. But I think the big thing, the big positive thing, is that we talked to government and we said this can't go on, because ultimately we'll all run out of reserves if we're spending down our reserves every year. And so the government have committed to a long-term funding review of hospices. NHS England have already started looking at that. We're talking to the devolved nations as well. And we will be pulling you all in and asking your opinions over the next year, 2 years, to make sure that we protect good hospice and palliative care. Because we know that we're still not getting to everyone who needs us. Now, for the big reveal, I always stand up here every year and talk to you about the stats. So I'll talk about the finances first. And Hayes McIntyre, our friends, have helped us once again pull together a report of finances over the last year. And they, as well as Craig Duncan and our finance team, have read through all of the financial reports and accounts from every single hospice. It's something they love doing, and they've asked me to make a special mention. Could you make them even longer next year, please? Because they love doing it so much and getting into the nitty-gritty. The results are available on the stand, so you can find them afterwards in their hospice report. But just to give you a bit of a flavour of what's happened, we're actually up again in terms of funding. We've hit the £1.5 billion mark, which is absolutely incredible. And I always talk about the £1 billion that we get from fundraising for the public, but it's up to 1.15 billion, which is amazing. NHS funding has gone up a little bit, but it's staying around that 350 million mark. So we owe everything to the public. The generous public, once again, have upped how much they're giving us. And it's a good picture overall. I stood here last year and I said to you I was a bit worried about legacies. They've been down. Was it a blip? We were down 9%. It's rallied. It's back up. We know that there are some big variations across retail. Some areas are doing well, some areas not so well. But actually, profitability is holding up around 23%. So we're doing all right, actually, in terms of charity retail. We brought in £81 million through lotteries, and that's continuing to grow. So please do go and speak to the lotteries team downstairs in the exhibition hall and speak to your colleagues and find out more about that. It's definitely a growth area. So we're doing all right on our income, but our costs are continuing to increase. We saw last year that costs were up 2.5%. We spend an incredible £822 million every year on our staff. This is where our money's going, and it's costing us more money every year to raise those funds. And we know that it's getting more and more difficult to fundraise. So we know it's getting tricky. But then again, I look at what we're delivering. And last year, I said to you we'd helped 208,000 people. It was slightly down from the year before at 212. We know that there's still over 100,000 people every year who are missing out. But I couldn't believe it when I saw the stats this year. I mean, this is the hospice movement all over. We've had a difficult financial year, but flipping out, we've helped a lot of people. Last year, looking at the hospice reported data that we've just brought in, hospices helped 225,000 people. Please give yourselves a huge round of applause. That's incredible. That's up 8%. In such a tough environment, we've gone out and we've helped more and more people. And the vast increase in that has been at Hospice at Home. So we know that we help more people than ever in their own homes, and it's now 86%. We had a 31,000 rise in the number of people that we're helping at home. This is the way things are going. People tell us that they want to be at home if they possibly can. Families want to stay together. That's what hospices are enabling. And also looking at bereavement support. Now, I stood here last year and said we were up again on bereavement support. We've gone up to 49,000. But I didn't think that was the whole story. I thought there was a lot going on that hospices still weren't telling us. And so you all looked at your figures and you sent them back, and last year hospices provided bereavement support to 72,000 families. Absolutely amazing. So we're doing all of this work, we're helping all of these people. The money's getting tighter, what are we going to do? Well, of course, we're going to look at the long-term sustainability review and we're going to look at our funding. But we've still got to keep looking at how we deliver hospice care. What are we doing? How do we evolve it? How do we revolutionise it? And that is what a conference like this week is all about. We're all here to learn from each other. We're here to learn from interesting perspectives, both inside the movement, outside the movement, in wider palliative care, talk to each other, take some risks, change what we're doing. And the hospices are brilliant at doing that. Again, you've all been so great at hosting me throughout the year, both in hospices and palliative care units up and down the country. And I constantly see the results of that and that change. So I'm really looking forward to some of the sessions, whether it's on the business side or the fundraising side, some of the comms challenges that we've learned, and a huge amount about clinical practice and how we change that. I'm also conscious, and I stood up here last year and I talked to you about evolution and revolution. And it's almost as though we've got to decouple those. We've got to do both, because we've got to look at the services that we provide and the families that rely on us so much. But we've also got to think about the fact that death and dying has radically changed in the 50 years since the hospice movement, more than 50 years, since the modern hospice movement started. And we've got to look at the way we die today. We've got to look at the way that families are spread around the country today, and all of the different pressures on us, and the ability for families to care as well. And we've got to look at how, as hospices, we change our services and we adapt to that. So I'm really pleased that we're putting that into action this afternoon. We've got a great session. If you haven't signed up for it and you want to, please come and talk to the Hospice UK stand. It starts at 1:30. And we're going to be looking at that revolution side and showing you some techniques, talking to some of the hospices who've been pathfinders for us and looking at what they're thinking about, but also just thinking about some new ways that we can start adapting that and looking at that in our local environments and our local communities. So I'm really excited about that. I think when we were planning the conference this year, I said enough theory, because we've talked about a lot of theory over the years. I wanted this conference to be the practical conference. Whether it's talking about things that we're going to do or things that we have done, being open about the successes that we've had and the things that haven't gone so well, so we can all learn from each other. And I'm really, really excited to see that we're all going to be doing that. I also just want to take an opportunity as well to look ahead to the coming year. And next year, many of you will know that 2020 is the year of the nurse. So we're going to be celebrating that through the hospice movement. At Hospice UK, I know Carol Walford's leading on this, working with the NMC. And we're going to be releasing videos every month, talking about different aspects of nursing, of palliative care nursing, of hospice nursing. So if you'd like to know more about that, we'll be doing a launch in January on social media, so you get some more information. But do come to the Hospice UK stand as well and ask us for more information if you'd like to get involved in that up front. We're really excited about that. I think I continue to be really excited by the coming year. I'm very much inspired by all of you. The work that we're doing, the fact that we're helping more and more people despite difficult economic circumstances, I think is absolutely incredible. And I know that we'll continue to do more. I know that we'll continue to learn from each other. And I know that we'll continue to make more and more strides in helping more and more families with death, dying, and bereavement. So I just want to finish by saying a huge thank you to all of you. A huge thank you to all of you as well who are listening externally all around the world. Thank you so much. It's a massive, massive privilege to work with you.